Hello? Said she was here. Hold on, guys. Hang on. Where is she? There she is. Hey. Can you hear us? Whoops, we can't hear you. Hold on. Yeah, we are, but let's do it again. Hold on. Hold on. On. Tracy, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Yes, no?
Yes, I got you now.
Okay, okay. Welcome to Polk Middle School in Carrollton. This is
Thank you.
like Global Explorers Club. And I know the first questions you're going to want to know, so I'll ask it. Oh, by the way, guys, we're going to do it the same way as last time. If you want to ask a question, come up here and sit down so she can see who she's talking to. That's only fair. Yes? Yes. You have 6th graders here, 2 7th graders, 2 7th graders, 1 and 2. We have 2 8th graders. And we just started this club this year, so hopefully it's going to continue to grow. So, but I know one of the questions you're going to want to know is how you got to New Zealand. So would you mind talking about that to begin with, and then they'll have questions.
Sure. Well, I lived here. My parents moved here in 1981 when I was 13. No, I was 7 then. And my parents came here to teach in a Bible school. And I met my husband when he was 5 and I was 8. And then we lived here until 1986. So I was 13 when we left and went back to the States. And then however many years later, 17 years later, my husband came on they call them an OE, which is an overseas experience. A lot of New Zealanders do it, and they go explore the world. He came to Texas and caught up with me, and we got married pretty quickly after that, even though we hadn't seen each other in a long time. So I've been here now since 2004. So now I've just finished my 25th year of living here.
Stop. Okay. You guys had some questions. You did your research. What questions do you have? Get up and go up there. Come on, you can do it. Right. They have passports that they've been taking notes in. So
Okay.
What's some traditional food over here?
they allow me here to
What's some traditional food?
The traditional food. Well, New Zealand is actually very like we don't necessarily have a traditional food, but there is an indigenous group here called the Maori. So they were the first people to arrive in New Zealand. They weren't on the island. They arrived here from the Pacific region, like Hawaii and places like that. And they have a traditional food where because we've got lots of thermal activity around New Zealand. So we've got hot pools and boiling mud and things like that. And so the Maori used to cook food in the ground using hot rocks. And they would cook things like kumara, which is a little bit like a sweet potato in America. And then the other Kiwi famous food is like a Kiwi pie, which is not like an American pie. It's like a meat pie. And it comes in this, it's just a little pie for an individual. You can have steak pie, or they call it a mince pie, which is like ground beef pie. And that's probably the two traditional foods here.
Go ahead, say something.
Do you guys eat a lot of seafood?
Do we use a lot of what?
Do you guys eat a lot of seafood?
Oh, seafood. Definitely eat a lot of seafood. My son loves going fishing, and he'll catch a lot of snapper. Have you ever heard of that fish? Yeah. So we eat a lot of snapper, a lot of there's fish called kingfish and trevally, and a lot of people bring their fish home and then they take it down to the fish and chip shop where they get it cooked up. And so chips here are not like American chips, they're like French fries. So we eat fish and chips. But fish here is actually very expensive to buy in the shop. It costs a lot of money. It costs about sometimes up to $40 a kilo, which is about $20 a pound. So it's quite expensive.
One, get out there. Yeah, go under, that's fine. Keep going under the table, but not up there.
Hello.
Like, what type of education do y'all like learn in there?
Say it one more time.
What type of things do y'all learn in there?
Do we learn?
No, like what things?
Like subjects.
What things?
Oh,
do you-
at school. Oh,
Yeah.
the same subjects you learn. There's a focus on the basic math, science, history, English, of course. That I used to teach English with Mrs. Moore back at another school in Texas. And they do a lot of languages here. So they teach Latin, French. They teach Maori, which is the traditional language here, which is called Tereo. I'm terrible at like rolling my R's, but that's what it is. So, and then you can do lots of cool things in school as well. Like my son was on the motocross team, which is the motorcycle team. So he would, do trail riding. He was on the ski team, the snow ski team. So there's lots of cool things like that as well that you can do here. There's a big emphasis on being outside because New Zealand has a beautiful, mild climate, and it's usually beautiful outside.
Another question. Is
Yep.
it longer school days or is it shorter?
One more time.
School days longer in here or are they shorter?
The school day. Yeah. So my daughter, who's still in school, my son's finished school now. She has to be there at 8:40 in the morning, and she gets out at 3:20. So it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
Yep. But we live in the country, and so my daughter has to take a bus in the morning, and unfortunately it takes her about an hour to get there and then an hour to get home. So her day is quite long.
What's the coldest month?
The coldest part of New Zealand?
Month.
One more time, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Month. Month.
Month, coldest month. I got it. Okay. Our coldest month is usually around June or July. May, June, July are our winter months, so we're opposite to you. And so we're going into our winter right now. It's just starting to cool down. It's autumn right now. And the coldest month is usually around June, July, and that's when everyone goes down to the mountains to go snow skiing.
What else, guys? I know if you have more questions, go ask. Go, where she can see you. Go on.
So, are they So do you guys have a lot of similar things in New Zealand like the US? So
Okay, say it nice and loud.
do you guys have a lot in common with us? Like do you guys have like similar things?
Yeah, a lot in common with Americans. Yep. Yes. Although like New Zealand it's part of the British Commonwealth. So we like the England has lots of regions around the world that are connected to the English crown. So technically New Zealand is under the English crown. So it's probably more similar to an English kind of country, but there are definitely a lot of American influences here. Like most of the television programs come from America. A lot of food has come from America. So it is a very similar society. It's a great place to travel. It's beautiful. It's an amazing place. Lots of similarities, but a lot of differences as well. And I'd say more like England, probably. Yep.
I have one question about what is the
Oh, what is the
Hi.
most popular sport in New Zealand?
The sport.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the New Zealand All Blacks, but they are a famous rugby team. And they have like rugby is kind of like American football, but the same team stays on the field the whole time. They don't switch defense and offense. The same players play both sides, and the games are nice and short. They're only about 80 minutes long, so they're very quick. And the New Zealand All Blacks have been the best rugby team in the world for a long time, which is amazing because New Zealand only has about 5 million people. And we play rugby against England and South Africa and Australia, who have way bigger populations. So if you should look up the All Blacks. They're pretty amazing to watch. So it's a rugby.
One of my girls has a question and she's too chicken to come up and ask it. So I will ask it to Victoria, if we all point at her.
Hi, Victoria.
She- Right. You remember this, don't you, Tracy? The junior high, you remember middle school and how squirrely they are. Anyway,
Yeah.
her question is this about your laws. What, like driving, like how old do you have to be to drive? Or do you drive on the same side of the street? That kind of stuff.
Okay. We do not drive on the same side as America. We drive on the opposite side, and the steering wheel is on the opposite side of the car. So when I drive, I sit on the right side and I drive on the left side of the road. So as a driver, when you're driving, you always have to think I'm in the center of the road. So that's kind of how I learned to drive here, to make sure I was always on the right side of the road. And what was the first part of that? Oh, when can you get your driver's license? Yeah. So you can sit for your driver's license test at 16, and then you have to go and get a learner's license. And once you are ready to take your learner license test, you go sit with a driver and you can take that. And but that only gives you a restricted license. So it has certain restrictions, like you can't be out after 10 o'clock at night. You can't drive with other passengers who are not licensed. So like my son is on his restricted license and he's not allowed to have any passengers the same age, basically. He can't even drive his sister around. So, and then when you turn 18, you can go sit for your full license, which is a pretty rigorous test where they have a long driving test and also a written test again.
Cool.
Yeah.
What other questions about law did you have? Victoria, was there another one? No. Well, somebody always asks, democracy. You are a democracy.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Voting, how is that the same or different than America?
Well, we have the same process of local elections and national elections. However, New Zealand has a parliament like England does, or the British, all British Commonwealths usually have a parliament. So that means that we're not specifically voting for a president or a prime minister. You vote for the party that you support. And the way it works here is it's called an MP, no, MMP, where minor parties can get in and work in coalition with the party who gets the majority of the votes. So that's what we currently have here. It's called an MMP system. And what that means is that a lot of the smaller parties have the potential to get into government and have some influence as well. And that can be good and that can be bad. So so that's what we have now. And we've just had our election last year. So we have a new government from the previous one right now.
Do y'all understand what she means by parties? Here, how many parties main parties are there? Two. What are they? Democratic and Republican. And if you're another smaller party, do you ever have a chance of getting elected? No, but there they have a chance of being elected and also working together in government. Emily says that's cool.
Yeah, it is. It actually is a good system. I mean, sometimes things happen that we obviously don't really like because we think the minor party is having too much of a say. But to be fair, it's more representative of the whole population because you do have differences in people's political opinions usually. So it's been okay. It's been good. Yeah.
Okay, what else? Come up here. Come on, get up here. Come on up. Come on. Yeah.
You don't have to answer this if you like feel sentimental about this, but has there been any war? Or like any like
Has there been any?
war or any fighting?
So you got say it one more time.
Like has there been any war or anything like fighting? Like between
War. Got it. Okay. Well, actually, New Zealand is a very, very neutral country typically. Um, they're usually very kind of down the middle, but we actually have a very, very small military. There is a New Zealand Army. And there is a New Zealand Navy, but they actually don't have a lot of ships or anything along those lines. They actually rely on Australia and they rely on on the USA as well for protection. But New Zealand's been really lucky because we haven't really been involved in any major wars. New Zealand did send people to Afghanistan recently, when the same that Americans were there. But no, New Zealand is generally a peaceful place, and let's hope it stays that way.
okay.
Go ahead. Richard, go ahead.
Why do people usually not tip?
One more time.
Say it loud.
Why do people usually not tip?
That's it.
Tip.
Yeah. Oh, why don't people tip?
Why don't?
Sorry, I'm trying. One more time.
Why don't people tip?
Why don't people tip? Got it. Okay. Usually, well, everything that you buy in New Zealand already has the tax worked in. So we have a GST here, which is a goods and services tax. So like when you go to get your hair done or something here, they've already worked in the GST. So a lot of times people just it's not been part of the culture here. And like when you go to a restaurant here, it's very expensive to eat at a restaurant, you know, where in the States they kind of reduce the prices and then ask you to tip the waiter on behalf. That doesn't really happen here. But I have seen recently more people leaving money on tables and stuff at restaurants. But the cost of living in New Zealand is very, very expensive. So it is actually hard to go out and eat out a lot. Like the average house price in New Zealand is about 800,000, sometimes over that as well. Like there are certain areas where you've got the mean average is around 1.2 million for a house. So it's very expensive.
Oh, I do also have one more question though. What is the main animal farm for wool?
And I've heard something about animals.
What is the main animal farm for wool?
Oh, the main animal farm?
For wool.
Whoa.
Oh, wool.
For
Uh,
wool. Main animal farm.
Oh, you mean sheep? Like what?
I thought it said goat or something like
I'm confused about what you're asking. Sorry.
If you just get up and go toward the camera and ask it to go out.
What is the main animal used to farm wool?
Oh, to farm wool. Well, here in New Zealand, it is sheep, but they do have other. Is that what you're asking about wool?
Yeah.
Okay. But they do have other animals like alpacas. Have you ever heard of an alpaca? Yeah. So they do use alpacas as well. But the wool industry in New Zealand, unfortunately, people don't make as much money out of wool anymore. So the main industry here now on farms is dairy cattle. So they use dairies like to milk cows.
Is alpaca wool more expensive?
Yep, yeah, because it's a finer wool and it's used in things like expensive sweaters. We call them jerseys here, but they're sweaters, yeah. And there is a certain type of wool that's more expensive. It's called merino wool. Have you ever heard of a merino?
No.
Okay, they're like a sheep that's down often in the South Island. They like colder temperatures, and they've got a very, very fine wool that's used to make very expensive sweaters and carpets as well. Good question.
Why is New Zealand known as one of the largest producers of wool?
Why are they known as? Well, when I go ahead.
Why are they known as one of the world's largest producers of wool?
Well, because really the country is designed well for sheep. It's very steep, it's very hilly, and sheep do well on that kind of country versus cattle. So when I lived here in 1980, there were about 60 million sheep, and there were only about 3 million people. So there were a lot of sheep per person, and now that number has reduced significantly. They're still one of the biggest producers of wool, but not like they were in the 80s and 90s. It's different now.
Did you have a question, Paul?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, sit over and go. Real loud.
What are some laws that you can or cannot do in New Zealand?
Some laws?
Yeah.
Yep. They're pretty similar to the States. Like you have to follow similar rules. Goodness. You stumped me on that one. I'd say it's pretty similar to the US. Like it's all based on the same kind of premise that you look after your property or people's property, you look after other people, you're respectful, similar laws.
And I have what are the hobbies, like the original hobbies that do in New Zealand?
Hobbies? Yeah, well, a lot of people in New Zealand for their hobbies, they spend time outside. A lot of water skiing and fishing on the like we live just not too far from the ocean. And we go to the lake quite often. A lot of people hike around New Zealand. Like New Zealand has some of the best walks in the world where people, spend 3 days walking over tracks and they have huts along the way that you can sleep in. So most hobbies in New Zealand are outdoor activities because the climate is so beautiful.
Okay, thank you. What is the most famous thing in New Zealand?
The most famous,
Yeah.
What's it known?
Why is it
I
known
didn't hear. One more time.
Why is New Zealand known for?
Oh, what is New Zealand known for?
Yes.
Well, probably the biggest thing we're known for is number one, the All Blacks, the rugby team. And then also we're known for kiwi fruit. Have you ever heard of kiwi fruit? Nope. Well, it's a little fruit. In fact, that's what I do. My husband and I have a kiwi fruit orchard, and it's a little fruit. It's brown on the outside, but usually they're green on the inside with little black seeds. They're lovely and delicious and sweet. But New Zealand, we grow a gold kiwi fruit here. And so that's kind of our claim to fame. So if you go to your grocery store, you might see some gold kiwi fruit. Well, that will probably have come from New Zealand.
Oh yeah. And what do you like doing in your free time?
What do I like
Doing in your free time?
in my free time? Well, we love going, like I said, we love going water skiing. Um, we we live on a farm. We have about 35 acres. So we love being on our farm and walking our dog. And yeah, we love traveling around New Zealand because there are so many beautiful places to see. There's lots of hikes. There's lots of they call it the bush here, which is like going into the jungle pretty much. And then they've also got the beaches, which are not too far. That's what we do for fun really around here.
Okay. Real loud.
What's your currency?
What?
What's your currency?
Currency. Oh, yep. So we have the New Zealand dollar, which is quite a fascinating currency. If you can look at it online, it's got beautiful birds on it. It's got famous New Zealanders who have done things throughout history. But one thing about the money here, you get a lot more for the US dollar than you do for the New Zealand dollar. It's only worth about 62 US cents. So yeah, it's when I go home, I spend a lot of money. But one thing about you can wash it in the washing machine and it doesn't tear because it's kind of got a plastic coating on it. So the New Zealand dollar is actually designed very well compared to the American dollar, which is easily, like if you get it too wet, it just, crumples or tears into bits. You can almost try to rip the New Zealand dollar and it won't rip. It's pretty cool. Plus we have a dollar coin and a $2 coin. So we don't have a dollar bill or anything like that. So everything else below $5 is a coin.
So do you sell the gold kiwis that you grow?
Yes. So every year we've got people who come in and pick it, and then they send it to a pack house and they put them in boxes and then they send them all over the world. Usually our fruit goes to places like Japan and China, sometimes Europe. and sometimes America, but yeah, so our fruit is a commercial fruit. We do that as part of our living, as part of our income.
Okay, I get to ask the last question because we're almost done.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. What do you miss, if anything, about America?
Oh, you know what I miss the most is my family, because it's just not as easy. Well, I'll tell you, when I first moved here 20 years ago, it was very hard because we didn't have things like Facebook like this. We didn't have Zoom meetings or FaceTime or any of that. So I would have to phone my parents on the telephone, and it was very expensive. Nowadays it's easy because I can talk to my mom every day and I can see her, and I can see my dad every day. It's amazing. And I can talk to people in Texas like this. So that's probably the thing I miss the most. And then I miss some American foods, I'm not gonna lie.
What
I
don't
miss
y'all
some
what,
oh
what foods?
oh well, I love Chick-fil-A. We don't have Chick-fil-A. And we don't have really good Mexican food restaurants. So they're usually not, well, they're not what I know from Tex-Mex, you know?
Yeah.
Barbecue, we don't like, you don't get anything like Texas barbecue here. So those are the things I really miss.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm,
Guys.
I'm, I'm glad I got to see you all.
Stop. We have to, what?
I hope you go look up some things about New Zealand.
Well, one of them has already looked at kiwi, and that's why he was holding up his Chromebook and showing people what a kiwi was.
Oh,
Like you
cool.
were
Well,
talking about.
look up the gold one as well, so you can see how different they are.
Look, that's what they were doing.
Oh, great. Cool.
Anyway,
Well, if you ever get to taste one, they're delicious.
well, thank you so much. Seriously, appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you on Facebook more. And
Thanks.
so we will, let me get in the picture. We'll see you later. Okay.
Great.
Bye.
Nice to see you. Bye-bye.